Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Beyond Terrain podcast. I'm your host, Leo Dalton. If you're new around here, consider following the show, maybe subscribing if you're on YouTube. And if you like the show, leave us a review, a comment, a rating. Those things go a long way to help us grow, help support the show. Obviously, sharing is the best way to get this message and what we do here around. So make sure to share. It would all be really appreciated. We have a fantastic guest today, Dr. Amanda Vollmer. I've, encountered her work quite a while now at this point, I guess, in my perspective, probably like 4 years ago. And, always been a really brilliant voice and really helpful in my journey. Again, it's just amazing how many people are speaking up now who have, I think, a healthy perspective. We live in a great time, in my opinion, where, especially in the train camp, that there's a lot of people from this framework. Whereas, when you look back and you study the history, there was only like one or two people at a time, maybe some people in the background or underground and stuff. But now we have so many amazing voices. So I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Dr. Vollmer, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Liv. Thanks for having me.
Certainly. So my first question to all my guests is to get a little definition of health. What is health? What does it mean to you? How does it manifest? What does it look like? You can take it in any direction that you'd like. So I'll give you the floor.
Well, I would say health is balance in your terrain. And that's as simple as I could probably put it, but ultimately, it's a dynamic dance, health. And we can look at this from multiple angles as far as um, what someone decides health is for them, right? So there is some subjective aspect. Like I know a lot of people, they think they're healthy. They'll say, they often will say, "Oh, I eat very well, my diet is wonderful." And however, when we then look at the diet, I would remark, well, this wouldn't be the best thing to eat, and so forth. So, but that's their perspective that they're healthy. Then, as awareness comes and you realize, oh, those symptoms that I think, or that fatigue I've had, or things that I've experienced is not normal. And so the definition in one's mind can change just from that. So that aside, um, really it's balance. Mind, body, spirit is one. This is all one containment, and it can be imbalanced in any of those and throw off the terrain, and then you will exhibit symptoms, whether it's overt or covert. There's still symptoms of that imbalance. That's also part of, I see it as like the bigger spiritual picture, because if everything was perfect and nothing was ever wrong, why would we even do this game here? Why would we go through what we go through, all the suffering, all the trouble, all the lessons? Like, why would it be so? And I feel like we create challenges in our lives, and sometimes they're health based challenges, in order to lose something to find it and gain preciousness, or like my experience for the wounded healer path is to experience all these kinds of conditions, and then I have empathy, compassion, and knowledge that I can bring to clients and patients and people who are experiencing the same sorts of things that I went through, and that informs me and helps me become better at what I'm here to do at my path and my goals. So when I have imbalances, I'm looking at them for information. What is happening in my life that this has happened, this symptoms are here, and what's it trying to teach me and show me? Is it trying to tell me I'm deficient in something? Is it trying to tell me I'm toxic in some way? Or is it trying to guide me, because I've been unaware of some aspect of myself, and how to integrate that and then continue the expansion to the next level, which never seems to end. So, so there it is.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned some really great points there too. Like we're all so motivated as well in some way to improve and become better and even learn from the lessons. So I think you bring up a great point there, especially with sort of this higher journey that everyone's on as well, and how it ties into health too, right? We have very physical challenges at times, but yeah, sometimes, yeah, you need to you don't know what you have until you lose it, and hopefully you regain it, right? And hopefully you regain it in stronger, better, more consistent ways, right? So beautiful. A great way to start the conversation off there. I've not asked this question before, but I'm really interested to hear your perspective on it. There's this beautiful duality that exists in nature with the masculine and the feminine. Approaching that health wise, do you see that there's a difference there, right? So working with like men versus women, is there like a difference in the approach and the way that, it even manifests in that respect? So just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, I tend to attract like the demographic I tend to attract are those over 50 or between, 40 and 60 that are people are trying to help themselves. They've been through the ringer as far as the healthcare system goes, and they're not getting their answers. And so, but um, I tend to see a lot more females than males. But when the men do come, they're very. It's interesting because they're very linear in the way that they often are, either trained to think or naturally think. So I actually find it a little bit easier to work with the men because basically you just point and like do that, and they're like, okay, and then they do that, that kind of thing. But the like involvement with women, it's very like it's very enigmatic and can go into like deep places, and um the really tough questions can be asked about, okay, take it next level, next level, next level. um so it tends to be more of like a dance with women, as opposed to the men just like, oh yeah, get up in the morning, do a coffee and okay, I'll do that, kind of thing. Which is, it's kind of just an interesting approach that I've noticed. It's not 100% across the board, but um, the men that I've worked with, yeah, it's really, they're very like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it kind of thing. And the women are like, why am I doing it? And what about the nuances of why I'm doing it? And bigger questions tend to happen there, and the males will go like later, will maybe ask those deeper questions or do some really cool research or something like that. But I mean, of course I'm generalizing, but and then in medicine, of course, there are different highlighted needs for men's health and women's health. I mean, I'm in menopause now. That's a really huge transitory space where you don't know what's going on. Your like brain is literally metamorphizing. Like, not even kidding, it like shuts off, parts of the brain shut off and kind of melt down back into their core materials and then remake themselves, like memories and aspects of the brain that are no longer required for baby making or mating go away. And so you actually unhook parts of your electrical system for a while, and then it hooks back up hopefully later, so you can think and function again. And that's very different than like how a male goes through their andropause, situation, and the different risk factors and things that become highlighted in one's healthcare are going to be slightly different. Tends to be more prostate health in men, and getting up in the night to urinate is common for both parties, but tends to be a little bit more pronounced in the males because of the prostate. And the belly in men leading to higher risk of heart attack, like just the hip to waist ratio can dictate, how at risk you are for having a heart attack, because the aorta gets pulled by the belly, gets pulled down, and that puts a physical strain on the heart. So that's another, one that comes up a lot more in men's health than women's health. Again, it's across the board, but those are like the dominant features. Um, yeah, so there's definitely uh, differences. There's definitely important differences that, but at the same time, when you're coming into a health project, there are major things you can do where it doesn't matter if you're an elephant, you could do them, like cleansing practices, like not eating poisons, like not injecting poisons into your body, like making different choices when you are shopping for even clothing. Like, a lot of people don't know that wearing polyester can decrease sperm count and testosterone levels in males, right? And in females, it has also has an endocrine effect, a negative one. Like, these are things that everybody can, make some changes in, and begin their process toward health, and then get more specific as time goes on.
Beautiful answer. Yeah. Yeah, the clothing one is a big one, and it's tough. It's tough, right? Because it's 90% of clothing now is all polyester, and it's so estrogenic, right? It's just plastic. It's wearable plastic. There's no way around it, really. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's far too common. Um, so many little things like that too. And I just remembering earlier when you were saying talking about health, right? Like it goes beyond diet, right? Someone might say, "Well, I eat a really good diet," but they're surrounded by plastic constantly. All they wear is plastic, or they're wearing their cosmetics and dishwasher soap, stuff like all of this stuff can really have profound effects, right? So it's even greater than just looking at the diet, right? You have to kind of look at a much bigger picture. Only, and then we're only speaking kind of about the physical level here too, right? We're talking about material, chemical stuff like that, right? So it can go much deeper than that. At the same time, I'm sure that we could probably dive into a large conversation around that topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so when it comes to, healing the mind, I did want to hear your thoughts on, the mental body, right? Because I feel like when it comes to physical, you know, chemicals, stuff like this, it is more straightforward, right? It's like avoid toxicities and, you know, avoid deficiencies, right? So nourish yourself properly. I guess at the most basic level. And then I guess going up to like the emotional, mental plane, I've found it, to be far more complex, especially when it comes to healing, the mental body, because our minds put up these very interesting blocks, and it can occur in for the physical as well. But, when you're trying to look at your life and, some people can absolutely just blur out memories completely and forget about them, right? And the symptomology of the mind is really really interesting too, just to see what can happen. Um, so I'm really curious about uh, how you even approach healing from the mental plane, right? And maybe what connection this has to our physical body as well, because we've talked about that a little bit, and trying to clear up sort of so what that means, what this emotional, physical connection means. So I kind of am steering you in a few directions here. Maybe we can start with that, just this connection of the mind and the body, and then we can move maybe a little more specific there, if that works for you.
Sure. Well, I mean, one thing I learned recently, like on a new level, I feel like we learn something and then we think we know that aspect, but then another layer comes, another piece of that knowledge, and then as we grow, it just keeps going. Like you never really ever get to, it's like infinity. We're just trying to keep reaching infinity, but we never do. And that's how I feel like our existence is. And so it's, in one way it's exciting because we are always seeking the information, or we're always seeking to know, or seeking to integrate something. But I really feel like eventually it's to not know. Meaning the goal is not to be in our heads all the time. The goal is actually to integrate and realize the body is the temple, and it's one piece, not just up here in the clouds, right? And that we keep seeking the knowledge and the answers and the why. We want to know why. Like even children, right? When they're born, they're just asking why everything, and we are like addicted to whyology. And how about the mystery though? Like what's wrong with not knowing? What's wrong with trusting the divine source to play with us and to guide us, and to trust that, and to have, there's like a fine dance there. So I feel like we go from one polarity to the other. And one thing I learned in this recent trip I was mentioning, I went to Bulgaria, and I went, friends invited me for more so of a private master class in Paidalajan. And Paidalajan, is an advanced tapping and stretching process by the first, designed by the Shaolin monks. So this is like your very intense, rigorous types of deep work, but from the physical, right? We can take ayahuasca and do some deep work with the psychedelics, and I have done these things, but I have not experienced as much of a profound shift and clearing and healing and releasing than actually approaching it from the physical body. Because when you are doing this for 20 minutes on a spot, okay, what starts to come out is all this Sha, which looks like petechiae, broken blood and stuff, but it's really not. It's actually deep, deep, deep debris inside the meridians. So our body is connected with meridians, with little tubes through all the chakra points, through all the nadis. Okay. So doing this, simple. You don't even have to think of anything. You don't even, I mean, we do Ho'oponopono when we tap. Thank you, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, this kind of thing. But what starts to come out is all debris. And I'm talking, yes, physical debris where you're getting sort of the bruising effect, which is called Sha, and emotional effect happens where you might be crying, you might be having an experience, an emotional experience, and the mind, thoughts, things come up for release. I had associations with shoulders and old boyfriends. I had like, I was surprised at where my body was holding memory and experience and was coming through the mental sphere as it was clearing it. Okay. So I feel like that's a concentrated way of getting a lot processed. I'm very efficient when I think about these things. I like the efficiency of multiple. I want to have fun. We are here to have some fun and some joy and good things too, and not just always this strict discipline on ourselves. And like, however, it's a balance like everything. And the PIDA is doing all of the three layers at once. And so you're really getting through a lot of um, trauma, recessed, post traumatic stress, and emotional baggage that we just hold on to and we never release because healing, when you're asking me, what is healing? Often I'll say, well, it's release. It's not suppression, it's expression. And we're really addicted to judging the symptoms and then taking something that suppresses it because when we think it goes away, we have the illusion that it goes away and then we think we're good, right? But that's actually just burying it. So you can bury stuff and hide stuff and it looks good on the outside, right? Like you paint over the wall and you don't know where it was punched and you don't know what happened underneath it. And so that's like us. And then when you start to agitate and mobilize this, it all comes to the surface. And there's, different ways to go about doing it. And I think all of our modalities are just, our belief systems on what's the best approach to go in to clear and release and express what's been held and what's been hidden and what's been, just patched over, that really is crying out for true, you know, um, true results, healing results.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's so cool. And there's so many different interesting modalities, and I think that one of the, commonality that I see is, this somatic component to it, right? We're not just addressing from the mind standpoint. We're not just going from a pure physical standpoint, but it's like this integration of the two within the modality as well. And I think that's so fascinating, right? So you're addressing multiple factors here, and really all of this is not far from the spiritual body either, right? They're the spiritual aspect of our lives. Really, it all exists within that frame as well. And um, honestly, that's a very sort of difficult conversation to even have when we're talking about that higher level because it's almost like hard to put into words, right? It kind of just exists as it is, and it's like, how do we even talk about it? But um, it's all reliant on that, right? All of these lessons, all of these, even these interventions, these things that we're doing, it all is connected, even on that higher level, like you were mentioning earlier, on this journey that we're on to, for some reason, improve ourselves, which, you know, I think is one of the greatest evidences for, some sort of higher power there. And um, anyways, trauma has been a topic on this channel. We've been kind of delving into the weeds of it. We had a couple of very interesting conversations surrounding, trauma as being sort of a causative agent of a lot of diseases. There's a lot of talk about how, chronic illnesses especially are rooted in some sort of trauma. Um, I'm curious about your thoughts on that and whether or not uh, there's an interplay with a physical there. I know the Bigglesons and I had a great conversation too about how, there is an interplay between the storage of toxicity in the body and some sort of uh, scarring caused by perhaps a very physical scar or a psychological scar. Just curious maybe about to hear your thoughts on that connection of trauma and disease there.
Well, you can't separate anything really. This is like a one organism integrated with its world. So the idea of separation is kind of an illusion, because if you were to really see how maybe a dragonfly sees, or any type of creature that has a broader range of experience of the world, because we have a very limited light spectrum that we can see with. So say we could see our energy fields, and some people can, and if you try, you actually can get those skill sets. um, but imagine, the if you could see what was really going on, how different we would behave and how different we would interact. Like if you saw someone and they had, I don't know, a big hole in their field and they were just bleeding out, you could see that just stuff was coming out of them, draining them, or they were being, stuff was being stuck in there, and you'd go, hey, I can help you with that. I can help you with that because my field is good, and I can assist you with it. This is where I think we're going to eventually get to, where we're going to be able to visualize or manage the electrical field. Because everything comes down to this, right? Ultimately, and so when it comes to the energy field of the mind, right? There's not really a separation in all these fields. There's overlap and overlay. So the thought form is like faster moving light than, your arm. So I see all of the things that we call physical as just like super slowed down light. I mean, quantum physics has described it like that too, whatever. Not that I subscribe to everything that it does, but I'm just saying, like, it's like a slowed down thought or slowed down light, and then the more refined it is, the harder it's faster, and we don't see it as material. So our mind is just, faster light. And that means, though, that if we slow down that light, we can create physical particles, right? We can manifest through the thought, through the word. And as we focus more on bringing the light and imagining that light is becoming more concretized, that's how we actually use our manifestation powers. So that's why people love their vision boards and stuff, right? Like you're like, oh, I want to manifest a blah, 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 or here's a wish or something I'm asking, the divine for, or something I feel just that I want to create. It's not just about the word, right? There's more vibrational need that has to happen there. So why I'm telling you this is just to help people understand how powerful the mind is and the thoughts, and that it does relate to creation. And so when we're in a trauma state, a lot of things go out of alignment. And I know from my own traumas and personal experience, as well as other people, and it can begin your mind, like depending on how your mind is working, because some people are very visual and some people are very auditory, and so you all have your, different ways of how you approach life. So I have an internal monologue. About 50% of people don't. So when I speak, or when I think in speech, and I can hear myself in my head, but also I can visualize it additionally. So some people have one or the other, or some people have both of those. So what's happening here is we're ruminating on past traumas and trying to complete them and trying to close them and trying to make sense of them and trying to put them to bed, if you will. But because of the pain associated with the thought, the emotion associated with the thought, we continue to mull and create more of the physicality, more of the we're putting more energy into the manifestation as we're trying to close the loop, as we're trying to solve the issue logically, which is not the way to do it. That's why talk therapy only will take you so far, right? Some logic is good. I'm not saying it's all bunk, but some logic is fine. Like, oh well, you're just being silly because you're having this silly thought about your self worth or something like that. So just stop it. It's like when you go to the doctor, like, oh, when I do this, my arm hurts, and the doctor goes, "Don't do that." Then it's like, well, okay, great. I'm gonna have some thought stopping processes or some other things to like change my thinking, sure, but the underlying owie, if we will, is still there, right? The assault is still in the physical body. It's being held. So a lot of the rumination, I feel like, is the body trying to actually express it, complete it, and get it out physically. Um, so the best thing to do for this is actually not mull, is actually go and get physical, go and move the body, go and do breath work, go and ground your body outside, find new perspectives of energy, find new spaces that will help your energy field that has that hole in it, rebuild itself. And of course, any thought you have, just write it out and like even burn it or get rid of it, like just get it out of you so that you feel like you're not ruminating. But the change up, the best thing I found in the long run is just to exercise, go for a walk, to do something physical, stretch, yoga, whatever it is, move your body. It's the best way to, I found, to get it through. And then if you're blocked, like if there's a blockage in your physical body, that needs to be addressed. So that's either acupuncture, PIDA. There's like a million and one gadgets now. I even sell like an electro acupuncture device, and if terahertz frequency devices will do it. Like we have so much now, actually, which is incredible. And so it's like the more traumatized we're getting, the more solutions are coming. So hopefully we can turn a corner on that at some point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the talk therapy part of it, especially. It's funny, I'm finishing up a psychotherapy master's as we speak, actually, and I liken, the CBT approach, like the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, to like the pharmaceutical company. Like it's like almost a little bit of just like it's very surface level. It's very addressing the symptom and not actually the root cause of anything. Um, and so it's definitely important to go deeper. I think, and I think that you're bringing up some really great points. Something that I kind of struggle with, and just since we're on the topic here, really my philosophy is centered around, returning to nature, really being inspired by natural principles, trying to integrate those into our lives nowadays. When it comes to these interventions, sometimes I find it difficult to decipher which ones, and this might be a little a priori, right? So kind of like prior to any sort of experimentation, but trying to decipher which ones sort of align with this natural principle, right? Like, so like say something like acupuncture, right? And I think, they're using now stainless steel needles for the most part to do acupuncture. I'm like, oh, okay, well, like how natural is a stainless steel needle to be doing this intervention, right? So part of my brain goes there. The other part of it goes to, well, I think Hippocrates said it, modern problems require modern solutions. That's totally like a paraphrasing of what he said. He probably said it way more eloquently, but um, even in regards to our experiences now and our even the traumas that we face, we sort of face these unnatural traumas in this day and age. Whereas, you know, you could make the argument that we've always faced traumas, even in the natural setting, right? Hunting accidents or whatever it may be, natural disasters, stuff like that. Um, but a lack of love from parents was not something that was really experienced in the natural setting, right? Because there was always such a high amount of gratitude for, you know, a newborn child, right? It was just full of potential and they were welcomed with open arms. Whereas in this modern age, there's a lot of parents out there that don't like their kids, which is I think an absolutely unnatural form of trauma. Obviously, um, this discussion could go much deeper, but when it comes to interventions, right, I think that we are facing these unnatural environments that might require slightly more unnatural solutions and but still kind of sticking as close to nature as you can. Are you following with what I'm saying here?
Mm.
Can you provide any comments on what I'm kind of trying to get at or
Yeah, well, how I, translate sort of what you're saying in the way that I teach is that
yeah.
once you go down a road of suppression, right, and you take that road pretty far down, what happens is a dependency on the same activity. And then, so that's your modern solutions requirement, right? Because you probably are aware that once an intervention happens, which is one of the roles of the shots, is to, right, you have a perfect baby, you give them this, you don't know the difference, right? Like you haven't even gotten to know them yet, so you can't tell the damage from the first initial assaults. And so that's a modern approach to, that's like a mistaken thinking about health, right, which will give damage. So now you have a damaged, instead of natural, you have something synthetically damaged. Now you are, hopefully, the parents wise up, they stop that behavior, they clean things up, right? And then you can stay on the natural path. But you keep doing this, you keep giving the vaccines, you keep, every time they get a scratchy throat, you give them the antibiotics that totally damages their terrain, not just gut, but their whole terrain. And you keep taking them to the doctors, which they approach it with suppression. It becomes a little bit, to shift your path is a little bit tougher because there's a mindset that has to be overcome, which is often, connected to guilt and shame and all kinds of, as you made mistakes, and we're trained to mistakes are bad and you're bad if you make one, and it's like it goes right back to parenting, which is, dysfunctional, and the whole capture of what's happened to us is just unnatural. So it's like one intervention kind of begets another, and it keeps you on that slippery slope. Because I remember talking with a farmer one time who had inherited a farm of a long lineage of vaccination. I think it was sheep or a specific type of sheep or something. And if they stopped the interventions of the vaccines, they all died. So it kept them dependent on the suppression as the action. So yeah, there can be that thing. That's how I think of it. Is like, well, now, like, a stretch and sweep seems innocent enough on a when there's childbirth, right? Even the midwives will do this kind of stuff. Oh, we've got to move this baby along, so we're going to do a stretch and sweep. Even that is unnatural, and even that can cause a chain reaction that sends them into a C-section, right? Um, and so what we have available is what we're going to use as in as smart a way as we can as we dig ourselves out of this ridiculous path that we've created for ourselves. And so we're going to have to learn compassion, acceptance. We have to not be so judgy, which is really hard to do because you see mistakes being made and you want to correct them, but people learn through mistakes. So here we are, right? And I think I accept when people are trying to get out of it and they're using some suppressive tools as they go. I get it. Um, but then there's the purest path, or the highest path, or the best path, or whatever, right? So it's like there's these different. So I go, oh, but if you could just have done it that way, oh, it would have been, but people learn the hard way, or they have to go through their processes, right? Like I have people that are scared to come off of their pharma drugs. See, I would be scared to be taking them. So it's little by little for people to come out of the ideologies, the propaganda machine, the generational aspects, right? Like those sheep that just couldn't, they had, it was such a lineage of suppression that you stop suppressing and they couldn't even overcome. They couldn't even make the corrections, right? So it's like, okay, well, we're going to be gentle with ourselves now as we come out of this. And we're going to focus on the heart more than up here. And if someone's going to need to suppress something still, we can't just, what are we going to do? We have to love them through it. It's the only way that I can see us getting out. Banning these things is not going to be realistic. We're not going to get there just by overnighting it. It took too long to get here. Like Rockefeller ideologies and the Frankfurt School ideologies and stuff, they've infiltrated pretty deep. The philosophies I see right now are definitely shifting, so that's good. And yeah, use what you got. I understand the acupuncture needles aren't the best. We're going to get more refined. Like everything comes down to frequency. So do we even need any of it ultimately? No. We could heal with a thought. We could heal with a touch. We can, I've studied Reiki from all kinds of angles and have all kinds of master's training in various types of hands-on healing, and that will work 9 out of 10 times better than a Tylenol or any of these other things. But we're not ready yet, right? We're just babies in this. So do what you do best for you. I think that's where meet yourself to the next highest level. That's your goal. You don't have to be the top achiever. You can just move to the next rung of the ladder, and that's achievement for someone. So if they're going to get a stainless steel needle in their arm, go for it, okay? Because it's going to unblock them, and then they're going to get more faster light coming through them, and then they're going to be able to connect to source, and then they're going to be able to be guided better, right? Out of their muck, out of the low vibe stuff is just stuck in the muck, right? Any way to get them out is fine. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you can't just open up the floodgates, right? That kind of will just lead to disaster if you just kind of let it all out at once too, right? So there's sort of this, again, there's this protective aspect of our mind and our bodies too, right? Like our symptoms are obviously just healing mechanisms, right? Like the cough is slowly getting the toxicity out, but it's not like, you open up your lungs and then boom, all the mucus is gone. Like it's not just like right away, right? It's a slow process. Same with a fever. You don't just sweat for 5 minutes and everything's out. It can last, 24, 48 hours, whatever is kind of like natural and or normal, I guess, whatever normal means. But yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's great. And yeah, you got to kind of that's why it's so individual, right? We always say health is so individual. You have to meet if you're a practitioner, you have to meet the client where they're at, or if you're working on yourself, you have to meet yourself where you are, right? And take it slowly. And kind of even just reflecting on my own journey, just right now, it was still a very slow progression. I encountered, when I first heard of the terrain, I probably encountered some of the, more purist ways to approach things, but they didn't necessarily resonate with me right off the bat. So you know, I still took it like slow over the last, 4.5 years that I've been learning about the terrain, right? It's like it's been a slow progression to kind of integrate these principles over time. And um, so it's interesting how that happens, right? It's very difficult to go 0 to 100. So I think that's really helpful. And it's that self-compassion piece too, right? I think even understanding this like logically can help with that cycle self-compassion piece a little bit, right? So um, as much as that can affect an individual, right? So that's amazing. That's great. Yeah, this conversation just fascinates me so much talking about this connection. Um, you mentioned that really interesting modality that you're just learning about. What are some other modalities that have really stood out to you for approaching, health in general? You mentioned Reiki as well. Anything else kind of stand out as like just kind of mind blowing?
Yeah, it's like as I progress in life, every time I'm presented with something, I'm mind blown. So it's like after the Bulgarian trip, I was like, wow, how did I even miss this part? Like, I mean, I knew obviously like tapping, like, neuro linguistic programming and like those types of things, right? and EFT, emotional freedom technique, and like all of these behavioral change, like things you can do physical. But yeah, I'm endlessly just aghast, like just like I don't know what the word is, but like just aghast, I guess is the word, is like wow, and how much there is available for us. And like I probably don't even know maybe 1,000 different other ways in different cultures that we don't have a clue about, honestly. Like we're just, it's exciting times actually. So I mean, traditional Chinese medicine was one of my deeper loves. It was what really woke me up to the integration aspects of our body. It was the only model I had that really helped me relate the organ systems together with the meridians and the rest of the body to associate, like when, as signs. So when someone comes to you and they have issues with their ears, immediately I'm going to ask about if they have low back pain and if they have knee pain or knee problems, because of the where the meridian goes, and also because it all relates to the kidney and kidney health. So when someone is having ear issues, I support the kidneys because that's the expression of the kidneys comes out through the ears. And just as one example. So this type of knowledge I found very powerful. It really helped me when I had someone in front of me with imbalances, how to approach it, how to approach the imbalances properly, and how to make sense of why the body was doing what it was doing and the genius of the body. uh, I would say then that my next, powerful love was just the medicine that grows of the earth. And so plant medicine, and learning that we have medicine outside of our front doors that literally is sitting there for us. And the more we get to know it and the more we, ingest it and work with it, the more powerful we become, the more knowledgeable we become, the more um, intuitive to our own needs we become. And it's still overlooked somehow. I mean, it's still not a household thing to do, to think about the plantain growing on your driveway when there's a wound. Instead of reaching for the polysporin, right? How about go outside and grab a leaf and bruise it up and put it on your wound? This kind of approach of the way we think about our medicine. Um, and then movement, anything to do with a physical movement is has to happen in your life. It just there's we are meant to move. We are born to move. Um, and so these types of the therapies that I found work the most are aligning the breath with the body, making sure that things are mobilized inside, and sweating, which is a form of cleansing or detoxing, right? Um, so it doesn't even have to be a specific modality, but I have found, qigong, tai chi, a lot of the martial arts are very centering and balancing and potent. Um, I found that, yeah, the stretching and slapping, Pythalagian sort of approach is very concentrated, so you're getting a wow factor sort of after that. Some of the other processes take a bit longer. Terahertz frequency or frequency healing on any level is probably one of the most powerful, because that's why we do anything. I mean, I think at some point we'll figure out how we don't need to eat food, because everything we put in our mouths and digest and assimilate, what eventually happens. I've said this before. What eventually happens? Well, what's it after? It's after an electrical moiety of some sort, an electrical action. Like it boils down to that energy, everything, like literally everything that goes in. That's what it's about, is getting down to that and how it's interacting with all the other things in its electricity. Um, which means we can affect ourselves very easily from those, from frequencies, understanding frequencies. So I have like a Tesla machine, for example, very powerful. I have an ozone machine, also very powerful. That's more, using oxygen to heal, but it's getting at blood level, so it can approach, the entire body. I have a hydrogen machine, same idea. right? Hydrogen being it's the most the smallest element but the biggest amount of it in our bodies. And the structuring of water and the fourth phase of water and understanding um, how when our waters are structured properly, our electricity flows as it needs to, and affecting that. So with terahertz frequency devices, um, I have a Rife machine as well that I have Tesla coil, but also Rife machines. So Rife machines will send you frequencies through your signature, which we're calling DNA, whatever, we can argue all about that at some point when we get down the nitty gritty. But again, boiling down a frequency, but your unique code, and you can send frequencies to any part of your body that way. Those are very powerful aspects. So we can get, so I find the heavy hitters, as I call them, right, are like from the physical are things like DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, which I wrote a book called Healing with DMSO. That is a guide that if people don't understand the substance, want to know how to use it properly, that's why the book is there. It's layperson understanding, even though it's all science backed, everything. And then things like coffee enemas. Okay, again, they're a heavy hitter because the liver controls the blood, controls the endocrine system. It's like the master gland of the body, that it's like your receptionist. Everything comes into the body has to go through the liver. Liver has to make all those decisions. It's your major detoxifier and organizer and regulator. So if you can get on top of your liver and support it and clean the blood through the liver, you get ahead of the problem very quickly, right? Pain, inflammation, cancer, gallbladder issues, menstrual pain, hormonal imbalances, you name it, you can do that and get a result. Okay. So there's these kinds of physical approaches that can be done, and you don't even need to know what's wrong 100% before you start. I'm writing also a book, co-authoring on urine therapy or shivambu, using the intelligence of your own waters to regulate and up and down regulate, because it's actually an adaptogen. So it will choose what needs to be made more of and what needs to be less of. So there's an intelligence there. There's automatically have structured water, which has its own intelligence. And then it's not actually waste. People think the urine is waste. It's not, it's just excess. And you can apply this in so many ways. And that's why we're writing a book on, a guide on how to use your own waters for your own healing. Um, so, these are some of the modalities that are not really known, or substances not really known, but very, very potent. It gets a lot of things done. Like even DMSO can be used in a child with Down syndrome and can correct a lot of the genetic problems that you see, like the larger tongue and the shape of the face and the breathing issues and stuff, can repair that. Like Dr. Stanley Jacob, who's considered the godfather of dimethyl sulfoxide, he treated many Down syndrome children, and they grew up without the features, without the problems and features that they typically get. Which means it's, as much as we want to say genetics is like that type of genetics is set in stone, it is actually not. There is still an epigenetic component that can be affected as the child is still in growth, during growth. After everything's set, after 26, when everything's finished, very hard to change. But as we're flexible when we're younger, a lot of these conditions can be affected, and that's major, you know. Um, so there are plenty and plenty of powerful modalities, and I've dabbled in a huge amount of them, and teach a lot of them. So if people are interested in some of these topics, I suggest going to yummy.doctor. That's my main one of my main websites. It has a private membership. I'm teaching there. What I'm focused on is teaching people how to doctor their own selves, how to feel empowered, what to do, how to triage things, how to deal with acutes, how to help their families, how to have their home dispensaries, how to get back to nature in a way, like the way we used to do it, and more, and the modern ways. The cool modern ways can fit into our historical traditional ways. It's like we're in a world of AI now. So, it's a tool, and it's like the tool can be for negative things or for positive things, right? So we're going to adapt the best we can, but always remember fundamental principles. And that's the safest way to, move forward. And yeah, I just, if people are interested, I have tons of free public videos, on all these topics and blog articles and stuff. And I have a Substack page as well. And people can sort of, feel more comfortable to learn about these things so that they can apply them and test them out themselves and then go, oh my God, who knew a coffee enema could provide that much relief? Or who knew that my urine wasn't waste? I didn't realize that, or whatever. So,
Awesome. Yeah, and kind of what it sounds like too is like there's a big um integration happening too, right? Like obviously you take a very holistic perspective in just the way that you study and learn about these topics, but also apply them. And there's this sort of great integration going on. We've talked about this a little bit, how we are in this beautiful age where we can know about so many different traditional medicines and all of these new modern ways to approach, healing and health, and really bringing it all together. So cool. It's so fun to learn about this stuff. I really appreciate all the wisdom and knowledge that you shared here today. It was really, really an amazing discussion. Do you have any final thoughts on the episode? Anything that you want to add, or before we kind of sign off here?
we're in interesting times. There's a proverb about that. Um,
Mhm.
and what I'm feeling is that there's a lot of loneliness energy. There's a lot of like isolation, alone energy. Even when people are around other people, they may feel very alone. Um, and I just, I feel like social media has got us in a real pickle with our communications, with our interactions, with our satisfaction. And I just wanted to address that, if you're feeling like that, this is kind of what's going around, and to um, not stress about it, I guess, because I think people think they're the only one. They stress about it more. And I just feel that the energies are really big for this, and we're going to figure it out. We are going to figure it out together. So just hold on and find your people that you can speak with that, are okay with you, that accept you for who you are, and and do what it takes to not mull in it, to not stay in the thought form of that too much. We really need each other, and as much as we have been separated from the tribe, kind of going back to what you were talking about, excuse me, at the beginning, with nature and nature's principles. Well, we used to be tribal, right? You were saying with children, we used to we used to all take care of the children, but now we've got little boxes and little families, and weird expectations, unnatural expectations, which means we've put a lot of hardship on ourselves, and it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by that. And it's not natural. It's just, it's not natural to live the way we're living. This is adaptive, and like with all things, we are figuring it out. So I just wanted to leave on that note, because I think it's very common, and there's a lot of suicides and a lot of people struggling with depression and anxiety. And I just wanted to just give some hope to people, and also, there are tools that you can use to get yourselves out of that. You don't need to continue to mull and suffer. You don't deserve it. As much as you think that you're not worthy, or you're, less than, or whatever the thoughts are, the thought form that got in there, just even if you have to put elastic band around your wrist and snap that away, whatever you got to do, just stop the thought. It's a wrong thought. And you are divine and worthy. And in fact, I would go so far as to say, as if you didn't exist, none of this would exist, because that's how integral you are and important you are to life. And so, knowing we are one and knowing we are connected, I just want to thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's inspiring to see the younger generations like understand the importance of this knowledge and run with it. It's very brave, because we're still in a lot of ignorance and stuff, but it's the more we do it, the more we'll get there. So everyone, chin up, and And thanks again for hosting and for having me, and thanks to your audience.
What a beautiful way to end the show. Thank you, Dr. Vollmer, for everything today.
Thank you so much, Liev.
Yeah, amazing. I want to thank you all for listening. You should all know that this is not medical advice. It's for informational purposes only. But also remember, we're all sovereign, responsible beings capable of thinking, criticizing, understanding absolutely anything. We, the people in Greater Force, are together self healers, self governable, self teachers, so much more. So make sure you reach out if you have any questions, criticisms, comments, concerns. If you feel lonely, whatever it is, reach out. We're always here to chat. You know where to find me on Instagram, beyond.terrain. Links are all down below anywhere. You can reach me at email, Twitter, whatever. You can find me. Really appreciate y'all for taking the time to listen. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a like, share, comment, review, rate the show. That's a great way to help us grow, and sharing is always the best way. So just remember, there are two types of people in the world: those who believe they can, those who believe they can't, and they are both correct. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.